Well, welcome to a special edition of Inside the Birds presented by Green Lawn Fertilizing. I'm Geoff Mosher alongside Adam Caplan, but forget us. We are excited to have this very special guest with us. He is the governor of the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and a huge Eagles fan, Josh
Dude,
Shapiro. Governor Josh Shapiro, so much appreciate having you on Inside the Birds, which is courtesy of Pennsylvania's locally owned Green Lawn Fertilizing. How are you?
I'm doing great, Geoff. Thanks. And awesome to be with you and Adam. Talk a
Thanks,
little
man.
birds, talk about whatever you want. It's a great time to be a Birds fan.
Well, I can tell you this. I can tell you this. You are the governor of the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We are not going to talk on this show about anything left, right, or middle unless it's Saquon Barkley left, A.J. Brown lines up right, or QB draw up the middle.
Let me
Does that
tell you,
work?
that's the only reason I agreed to come on here. I don't want to talk politics. I want to talk
Yes.
sports,
Love it.
birds,
Love
whatever's
it.
on your mind.
Awesome. Great, great. So let's start off with this, Gov. I mean, you grew up a huge Eagles fan, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sort of kind of curious because right now is a great time to be an Eagles fan, second Super Bowl in 3 years. But you're not a real Eagles fan in our book unless you've suffered. So what is your first memory of
Yeah.
Eagles fan heartbreak?
Yeah. Oh boy.
Actually, Geoff, I got to just tell, I will answer that for you, but I was having this exact conversation with our kids. Lori and I are blessed with 4 kids who have grown up during the great years here, right? And I
Mhm.
said to them on Sunday when they were watching the Eagles celebrate the NFC Championship, I was like, you guys have no idea how good you have it. Like, we lived through all the lean years. By the way, for every sport. I mean, I can remember more of our Philly team losses in championships than there are wins. Now, look, I'm happy for my kids, but I agree with you. I don't think you're a real Philly sports fan until you've built up, whatever it's, being neurotic about every
Sure.
game because you remember what it was like. Honestly, I think Jaws in the Super Bowl coming up short against Plunkett and the Raiders there, that was probably my first memory of a Philly sports loss that shaped my childhood and now makes me even more appreciative and grateful when we win, whether it's the Birds or the Phils. Obviously, Flyers are rebuilding. Sixers kind of just suck right now, but I think we're like to see these teams perform well after you live through those lean years is really special.
So, Governor, since you brought up the Eagles' 81 loss, to the
Yeah.
Raiders in New Orleans, by the way, isn't it amazing? Isn't it ironic? But
Oh,
what?
I
Oh,
hadn't
yeah.
forgotten that.
Yep, yep.
Oh,
Same
that's
stadium we're going to
not
be in. Yeah.
that's not a good vibe there, Adam. I wish you hadn't told me that.
Well,
Yeah,
but they have the ability to correct that and
they
win,
did.
which we're hopeful for. But as a fan, I feel all 4 sports. What was your first team? I could tell you my team was the Flyers because I could go through numbers 1 through 31 and go through over a lot of numbers. And I'm a little bit older than
Yeah,
you, but that was my first team that I was like, wow, as a little kid. What was the
yeah.
first team that had an impact on you?
You know, and this is not to say I love them any more than another team, but probably the Sixers with Cheeks and Tony and Ivoroni and Moses. I mean, they were great. And I still think, by the way, Cheeks and Tony were the best backcourt we've ever had. Now, don't get mad at me. Obviously, AI was so much better than either one of them. But in terms of like a backcourt tandem, those two were amazing. And obviously, Tony's career was pretty much cut short with his foot and leg injuries. But that to me was like the first team that like I remember if I could stay up at night, watching the game
Hmm.
and then checking the box score the next day, how many assists did Cheeks have? How many rebounds and points did Moses have? I mean, like I just remember that. And I remember the back and forth in those years between the Sixers, Celtics, and the Lakers. This was before MJ. This was before Detroit and some
Sure.
of the other teams got going. But like that to me is the most memorable. Yeah, I would say that's the team that kind of shaped me as a kid.
One question off of that. I went to that Sixers parade. I remember Moses Malone, okay, number 2,
Yeah,
and Doc wearing the
Doc.
the,
I
the
mean,
sweater, right? And
yeah,
they brought him to the vet, if I recall correctly. But
yeah,
I was in some building, off Broad Street or somewhere. I didn't go to the
yeah,
vet stadium. It was too young, wasn't allowed to. But I just you talk about the fandom, and you just talked about your kids don't know how we had it at some points, maybe in the
Yeah,
80s, mid 80s. But I thought that 81 time, you talk about Jaws and that Eagles team played the Raiders, Sixers, Lakers, and of course Celtics, Flyers, Islanders. That to me, in my lifetime, again, I'm a little bit older than
yeah,
you were, but I thought in my lifetime, you were alive then, you were younger than I
yeah,
was then.
yeah.
I thought that was actually that 81, 82, 83 was incredible. I'll never forget.
Incredible. And that was an incredible run. And then we just kind of fell off for not 20 years exactly, but for a long time. And no, that was just extraordinary. I got to tell you, you mentioned Jaws and Doc. I mean, I'm privileged in my position to meet a lot of people, and
Sure.
you meet celebrities and famous people and all that stuff. I think honestly, like meeting Jaws, meeting Doc, I'm like more in awe when I'm around those guys than like presidents of the United States or people
Hmm,
like that, because they were the people you look up to as a kid. I just
sure.
did, Eagles pregame live the other day, and they had me sitting next to Jaws, and I was like, oh my God. Or when Doc came over and introduced himself to me, right? Like I was like, holy cow. So, to your point, like it you get shaped by this stuff as a kid, and I think it really it forms your views not just on sports but on life. I think it brings you together closer with your family, with your buddies, whoever that you enjoy those games with. Some of my fondest memories of hanging out with my dad, was sitting on the third base line at Phillies games, win or lose, just that special time to sit with your dad. Like all of that to me is just really, really special. And that's why I think sports just plays such an important and central role in our lives.
Well, the way you're
I hate
talking
to get
about your
sappy, but I don't know.
It's true.
listen, this
Yeah,
is this is the part of Philadelphia spread.
yeah,
This is what we do. In fact, that's going to parlay into my question. The Eagles win the Super Bowl in 2017, first one in
mm,
52 years. And I don't think most Philadelphians, they were so happy. I saw grandparents hugging grandchildren,
yeah,
crying. Like it was just decades in the making, generations in the making. And I
yeah.
don't think a lot of people really thought that that was going to be the start of a pretty special run that would see two more Super Bowl appearances within the next 7 years. So it seems like a little turn of the corner. But even yourself, I mean,
Yeah.
as a dyed-in-the-wool Philadelphian, when they won the Super Bowl in 2017, were you just finally happy they won it? Did you think that this was the start of something special?
I did not think it was the start of something special. And Geoff, to kind of put an exclamation point on the generational issue we talked about before, I remember we were sitting on like the sectional couch in our house. It was me and Lori, my wife Lori, and our four kids, my brother Adam, his wife Rena, and their three kids. And it was such a different reaction the
Mhm.
moment we beat Tom Brady. Our kids were young, jumping up and down, cheering. And my brother Adam and I were like, oh my God. Like, I can't believe it happened. We were almost like stunned again, because we sort of lived through those lean years. And our kids didn't have that perspective. And while I knew we were good, remember, you had sort of lightning in a bottle with Foles. You sort of, it wasn't as though we were built the way I felt 2 years ago coming out of the Super Bowl, that we were necessarily built for that long-term success. I do really feel like right now, the Birds with their veteran leadership combined with some of these new guys, Howie's brought in, from Coop to Jalen Carter. Obviously, Jalen's still incredibly young and only getting better. It does feel like we're in the midst of something a little bit different now than what we were, whatever that was now, 5, 6 years ago.
And are,
So,
are
so
you equipped to handle this? Are you okay with this Philadelphia Eagles
how you
team
handling
that
it?
is going to consistently win and be in
I
Super
love it.
Bowls?
I
That's
love
great.
it, man. It feels great. And I love the way it makes a community feel. I mean, I'm in the bit again, not talking politics or shop, but like I'm in the business of trying to help people, right? And so I enjoy people feeling good. I enjoy people being happy. And there's something about sports and music and art and culture and the outdoors and recreation that there's like an intangible thing that makes people feel good. And on sports, if you're not playing it, you're watching it and your team is doing well, it can lift up a whole city, a whole region, a
Sure.
whole community. And, I think it's also kind of lifting up the nation right now because there's a desire to kick the Chiefs' ass and not let them three-peat. So there's like this love that we're getting from across the country. Philly
Wow.
doesn't always get love from across the country. We're getting it right
It's
now.
true. Josh, let's talk about the economic impact, first of all. For a team,
Yeah.
I know they're not hosting the Super Bowl, but when a team goes on a run like this, and you talked about the goodwill and how people could connect, what does it mean for the state, if anything?
Well, first off, it just makes folks feel good. People are buying a lot more merchandise, and we want to encourage them to buy it local. We got some awesome local shops in Philly and the burbs. People are buying tickets. They're going out and celebrating. They're getting food. They're having Super Bowl parties.
True.
So it all adds up together. And I do think the economic impact is not, the primary focus, but that is an important part of it. The key is wanting to host big events, right? And we're poised in 2026 to host some huge events to celebrate USA 250, from FIFA World Cup to Major League Baseball, All-Star Game, a bunch of golf tournaments, and of course the NFL Draft in Pittsburgh, which is just a huge win for our Commonwealth.
So before Inside the Birds was even a blink in our eye, but maybe that's what planted the seed, Adam and I did a radio show together for the Fanatic at the draft in Philly when it was in Philly. And
Yeah.
Governor, I'm sure you remember it. It was a truly remarkable and special experience to see everybody there for the draft. And, ever since that moment, and even before that, people have wondered, could a Super Bowl ever come to Philly?
Yeah.
Instead of Philly always going to the Super Bowl, can it come to the city of Philly? Is that something you think you can see someday?
Man, I would love that. And I know Jeffrey Lurie would love to see that. I think we've got to, make some adjustments to the link in order to be able to host that. I know I don't want to get ahead of Jeffrey Lurie or the Eagles. I know they're thinking about it. And that's the kind of thing where, the Commonwealth wants to be partners in this, because we know that if we could host a Super Bowl here, that would lead to just massive economic opportunity. You mentioned the draft. I was at the Super Bowl with the Birds 2 years ago as our chief cheerleader, but listen, I was working my ass off while I was there. And part of what I was doing was working to get the commissioner of the NFL, Roger Goodell, to see Pittsburgh as a place that could host the NFL draft. Now, I know there's a Philly show, but obviously Pittsburgh's part of our great Commonwealth. And the reason I was working so hard was not just because it would be a fun, awesome, enjoyable event in Pittsburgh, but it's a huge moneymaker for our state, hundreds of millions of dollars in economic impact. And so, we worked real hard last time we were at the Super Bowl to get that win. And having the NFL draft in Pittsburgh, after Philly kind of set the standard several years ago with these, traveling outdoor NFL drafts, it's kind of bonkers how much money it actually generates. I think the Commonwealth is poised to really, really benefit from the fact that we were able to get the draft to come to Pittsburgh. And so hopefully the Birds are picking last in the first round in that.
That is true. 32nd. That's true. Here's a question for you, Governor. So clearly you have to be impartial. I would hope you would try to when the Steelers played the Eagles earlier.
No, I'm not impartial.
You're not. So you admit it.
No. You cannot bullshit your way through sports, Adam.
Hey, wait a minute. Do you have to believe that?
Yeah. No, you can't. You've got to be a true fan. And so
you let them know. Okay.
I'm proud of the fact that I'm an Eagles fan. I let folks know that in Pittsburgh. Now, let me be really clear. I'm always cheering for the Steelers unless they're playing the Eagles. They're an incredible franchise. And by the way, they got 6 rings. Okay. And that you cannot you can't sleep on that. They have incredible ownership group with Art Rooney and the Rooney family that came before. And they're an organization that gives back in the community, much like the Eagles do, especially with the Eagles Autism Foundation and other things. So I cheer on both organizations, but I'm an Eagles fan. I don't think you can pretend in this business. You got to be honest and true.
I love it. I wasn't sure if we had Governor Shapiro or Senator Fetterman on here a second ago. And now I'm thinking, if there's ever an Eagles-Steelers Super Bowl and these two guys are still not, you may not be able to have them in the same room. I don't know what would happen.
Well, I'll tell you what, my lieutenant governor is a huge Steelers fan. He's from the Pittsburgh area. In fact, his wife works for the Steelers. And when the Birds played the Steelers back in, I think in December, if I'm not late November, early December, we tailgated at the game, and He's like, you mind if I wear a Steelers sweatshirt? I'm like, I don't mind, man, but I'm just telling you, I don't have your back if the Eagles fans come for you there. You're on your own. But everybody was great.
Okay.
It's not like he's a Cowboys fan or something like that. That would be bad.
That would be very, very bad.
Yeah.
All right, one last question for you, Governor, but we do want to remind everybody that this Inside the Birds is presented by locally owned, Pennsylvania-owned Green Lawn Fertilizing. You can get 10% off if you head to greenlawnfertilizing.com/inside the birds to take advantage of a limited time offer. Always good to have locally owned companies sponsoring here on Inside the Birds, and always great to have you with us, Governor Shapiro. So you're headed to New Orleans. You're going to be there. You said you're going to be the biggest cheerleader for the Eagles when you're there. I feel like there should be some kind of friendly thing going on with, is it Governor? I can't pronounce the last name of Missouri. Mike Kehoe?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've already communicated. We've agreed that we're going to have a bet. I did bet with Governor Parson, who was the prior governor of Kansas, of Missouri. I apologize. And it was awful. I had to not only send a bunch of stuff to him, I had to hang the Chiefs flag here in my office. And it was beyond painful, guys. So I'm looking to avenge that loss, and we'll have a big bet, and we'll have some fun with it.
Well, I sympathize. You know, we had a pregame show. We have Jason Avant, former Eagle, who went to Michigan with us, and I'm a Penn State alum and grad and proud supporter. And I had to wear a Michigan hat an entire 2-hour pregame show after a Penn State loss last year. So
terrible.
I get you, man. I feel it.
Penn
so
State,
you're going to be yeah.
Penn State, by the way, had a hell of a run this year. I'm proud of Coach Franklin and what Pat Kraft is building there. I mean, I think they're really special. It's a great program.
I think Pennsylvania, if people didn't realize it, with the Eagles in the Super Bowl, with the Steelers as popular as they always are, and Penn State putting 110,000 people, you know, at whiteout games or even just Big Ten games, has really become an epicenter of some great sports. Don't you agree?
Yeah, without question. By the way, on game day, Happy Valley, right, State College, becomes the third largest city in Pennsylvania after Philly and Pittsburgh. It's extraordinary how just the world descends on that place. And I actually, for as amazing as it is to be with Eagles fans at the Link, especially in playoffs, or by the way, with Steelers fans too. I mean, they travel, they're an incredible fan base. I'm not sure there is anything like being in Happy Valley for a whiteout game or any other, kind of game. It's truly extraordinary.
Absolutely amazing. All right. You know, we have to do this before we let you leave and go back to actual real work and helping people out, right? We have to get your score predictions for the Super Bowl.
So look, I think there's going to be some good scoring in this game. I think you will see our offensive line give Saquon the opportunity he needs to be able to get going. Obviously, I think Devonta and AJ are connecting with Hurts now in a way that maybe we hadn't seen for a few weeks. I think they've got their timing right. Goddard is healthy. His ability to go over the middle and then get another 6 or 8 yards on a run after is pretty amazing. And I think all of that comes from the offensive line that gets that started. You combine that with our defense, you're not going to stop Mahomes. You're not going to stop Kelsey. You're just not. They're a great football team, let's be honest. But I think we can hold them to under 30 points. And so to me, I see a game of 31-27 Birds. I think it's going to be a reasonably high-scoring game. It's going to be an exciting game. And I got the Birds winning 31-27.
There you go.
That is incredible. And not only did you do such a good job of explaining why you felt that way, it sort of brought back memories, right? And, I'm just putting this out there, Governor Shapiro. There was once a Pennsylvania governor who parlayed his politician status into a great post-game analyst role in Philadelphia, Governor Rendell, and he was good. And, hey, I'm just saying, are you, is that
Ed knows football, and I love it. I love sports. It is, in this work, you need to give your brain the opportunity to think about other things sometimes. And that sometimes is usually only for a few minutes a day because of how all-encompassing this is. But for me, it's family and it's sports, right? And that's what I kind of want to surround myself with to take my mind off the work that's going on here. And so I love it, and not just cheering for the team, but really kind of getting into it and analyzing it, and spending time really following the team, the moves they make, and the way they play on the field. So it's a ton of fun. I love it.
Hey, listen, we really appreciate it. Governor Josh Shapiro of the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, thank you so much for joining Inside the Birds, presented, of course, by our friends at Green Lawn Fertilizing. For the governor and Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. You've been watching a special edition of Inside the Birds.